There's a saying that beginning is half the task. And I think that's true no matter what circumstance, but it definitely applies to when you have a baby or young toddler and you have food to cook and laundry to wash and pie to eat, moldy caulk in your shower to scrub. And today's a day like that, but I find that I'm most successful if I just start. And I normally start with the easiest part. So since I'm planning on making granola and pie, the first thing I did to just begin this whole process is turn on the oven. That felt like a very approachable, easy first step, and it kind of made me feel successful. I was like, okay, I've begun. And then the next step was to see if our toddler wanted to do a piggyback ride, and she did. So now together we're going to get started on making some granola. We're the kind of family that everyone kind of wakes up at different times. We have older kids, we have younger kids. Some people are hungry when they wake up, some people aren't hungry when they wake up. So rather than make a sit-down breakfast and serving it at a certain time, I find the strategy that works best for us is just to have food available that can be easily gotten out and prepared into a breakfast by the kids or my husband and I whenever we're ready to have breakfast. So right now I'm making granola. So I started with some quick cooking oats. I do really prefer quick cooking oats to old-fashioned oats. When I make granola, I feel like it's easier to chew somehow. So then I've got about 1 cup of avocado oil, 3/4 cup of maple syrup, and 1/4 cup of honey, to which I will add 1 teaspoon of almond extract and 1 to 2 tablespoons of vanilla. And then I also add a teaspoon of salt. And then I normally add a couple cups of nuts and a few cups of coconut. In this case, I had slivered almonds, and I thought I would just pulse them in the food processor a little bit to get their texture to be a little bit finer. And similar with the coconut, I ended up buying coconut flakes because that's all that was available. But for granola, our family prefers shredded coconut because it's finer. So the oats and the nuts and the coconut pieces, I kind of like to be all the same size roughly. It just makes a smoother kind of consistency. As I mentioned, I'm using slivered almonds here, but that's just because what we have in our pantry. I really like to use pecans as well. I think those are delicious. I also, maybe my very favorite thing is to use dry roasted salted almonds. We often get those in large bags at Costco, and I kind of like that salty contrast that it adds. I think it's really delicious. And then coconut, some people are fans of coconut, some people aren't. You could always leave it out. This granola is infinitely customizable. There was one recipe that I made that was like chai spices. I thought that was really nice for the winter time, like maybe around Christmas. And then you can mix in dried fruit after you bake it. So with this particular recipe, you pour it onto a parchment-lined sheet pan, and then you use your spatula to firmly press down. And, oh, I forgot to mention, brown sugar. Here I'm adding about a cup of brown sugar. So anyways, after you get all the ingredients added to the bowl and you mix it up, you pour it onto your parchment-lined sheet pan, you press it down, and you bake it at 325 for about 20 minutes. And then you take it out, rotate the pan 180 degrees, stick it back in, and then you can expect for it to be about another 20 minutes. However, since there is honey in the recipe, you do kind of have to watch it for those last 10 minutes because honey does tend to get kind of dark easily. So your oven, depending on whether it runs hot or it's accurate or what compared to mine, you might need to take yours out a little earlier. You can also omit the honey. I don't always add honey, but this day I was just thinking it sounded nice. You might be wondering why I'm pressing the granola down with the spatula, and the reason is that it cooks evenly this way. And additionally, when you're done, if you've pressed it down and compacted it this way, once it's cooled for about an hour on a wire cooling rack, you can break it into chunks, and so you can either eat it kind of as granola bars. They would have the consistency and a firmness similar to the Nature Valley granola bars, or you can crumble it up or chop it up and put it on top of your granola, or not on top of your granola, on top of your yogurt, or you could just eat it with milk. One of my very favorite ways of eating this granola is I'll put a banana in a bowl and then I'll spread nut butter on it, and then I'll sprinkle some granola on it and have it with some milk. And it's important that the nut butter is salted. That's important. But for some reason, I really like that combination. I should mention that's also really good with chopped up apple. So you get a really delicious apple, chop it up kind of small, put it in a bowl, drizzle salted nut butter on it, sprinkle some granola on it, pour some milk on, and it's just incredibly delicious. So now you can see that this granola definitely is firm, and you could grab a couple of these, throw them in a bag or a container, and then toss them in your diaper bag, and you'd have a snack to easily bring around with you. These last really well in the pantry, I would say a couple weeks. Now it's time to do some laundry. It's always time to do some laundry, right? I think every day some part of the process of laundry normally needs to take place to stay on top of things. So our laundry's down in the basement, so I get to haul baskets up and down 2 flights of stairs, and it's what keeps me so physically fit and just impeccable shape. So I don't have a very finicky laundry system. I've tried that before, and I always end up with just like piles and piles of stuff all around, and that overwhelms me. So really, we just toss all our stuff in a laundry basket, and then we wash it when the laundry basket's full. And one tip I learned, I kind of just experiment, and then I figured this out. But if you use diluted laundry detergent, so laundry detergent in a glass bottle with some water, it wouldn't have to be a glass bottle, by the way, that's just what I have. And you can just spray that directly on, bits of food or whatever is on your clothes. And I think it works really well. I like using the Tide with OxiClean for pre-treating stains because I've tried just mixing the powdered OxiClean with water in a bottle, and it works for a little while, but eventually it tends to clog up the nozzle. So for some reason, it's dissolved in such a way in the liquid Tide laundry detergent that I can spray it and I don't have any clogging problems. It's after lunch, and I don't know if anyone can relate, but I do find that after lunch I experience a drop in motivation. Sometimes I just want to sit down and relax, and that's fine, and I do that some days. One of my favorite things to do is just sit and read with the kids while the baby's down for a nap. But today I have a lot to get done, and so one way I've found to motivate myself is on cold days to just quickly light a fire, light a few candles, and for some reason, just the beauty and the coziness of that kind of incentivizes me to keep proceeding with my homemaking tasks. Speaking of tasks, the next one on the list is making dinner. I have book club tonight at 6:30, and so I know that I need to use the time when the toddler is napping to get dinner started. I find that there are moments when everyone's occupied and doing their own thing and or taking a nap or playing nicely, and I have to seize those moments and get dinner going. Because if I leave it all until 5 o'clock, it's almost too overwhelming and everyone's hungry. So it's better really to get started early. And that's one of the reasons why I like making rice in the Instapot as I'm doing now, because I can get it started when I have that window of opportunity. And then once it's done cooking, it automatically switches to this keep warm setting. So it'll be ready when the rest of dinner's ready. What is for dinner, you might be wondering? Well, I'm making my version of sesame chicken, incredibly inauthentic. But I'm starting by chopping up some snow pea pods so they're more bite-sized. Then I'm going to peel some carrots and chop them up too. Once I get the carrots peeled and chopped, I'm going to use the peel and the tops and the bottoms that I'm discarding. I'm going to stick them in this Ziploc bag that I keep in the freezer with like onion skins, onion scraps, celery ends, carrot scraps. And what I'll do with those is I'll just keep adding scraps to them throughout the week. And then when I either cook a whole chicken or I cook some sort of poultry with the bone in, I'll use those bones and those vegetable scraps. I'll stick them in the Instant Pot, cover them with water, give them a generous sprinkle of salt, and then I'll put it on the slow cook setting for as long as it will let me. I think my particular Instant Pot has a 22-hour limit, so I'll just put it on that 22 hours, let it slow cook, and then once it's done, I'll strain it through a colander and then divide it into several quart-sized freezer bags. I'll lay them flat in the freezer, and then that way I can pull out a few cups of really nice homemade stock whenever I need it. I don't like storing it all in the refrigerator because I feel like it puts pressure on me to use like a gallon of stock, and we don't use that much every week. So that way I feel like none of it goes to waste and I can pull it out as needed. So I've opened up a package of chicken breasts that I had thawing in the basement refrigerator, and then I also opened up an what is it called? An eye of round roast, I believe, and I'm seasoning that with salt, pepper, onion, and garlic powder, and I think that's it. And then I'm just gonna cover that dish with saran wrap and stick it back in the fridge, and I'll cook it later. But I always like to, if possible, only get things dirty once. So I'm already getting the scissors dirty by opening up the one meat package, and I'm already getting my hands all meat covered anyways because I'm going to be working with the chicken. So I would rather just do it all, and then when I'm ready to cook the pot roast, all I have to do is use tongs to lift it out into the skillet or the pot, and I don't have to get the scissors dirty again, and I don't have to get my hands dirty again. So for the sesame chicken, I'm just slicing the chicken about a 1/4 inch thick. It is really good to toss this with cornstarch and fry it, but I don't tend to do that on weeknights. I just don't want to put in the time and the effort also in cleaning up the mess. Then I just sprinkle the chicken with a little bit of salt. I would not recommend adding any salt if you're using regular soy sauce. This is the gluten-free soy sauce, and it's not especially salty. So next I'm making the sauce for the stir fry, the sesame chicken. So I start with cornstarch. I add onion powder, garlic powder, a little bit of ground ginger, some sesame seeds, and then I'll also add some toasted sesame oil and some soy sauce, and I'll just whisk that all together. And oh, I forgot to mention, I added like maybe a cup of sugar. It's kind of a lot, but that is essential to what I think of the sesame chicken flavor. So nap time is over, but dinner is still not done. So I offered my toddler a snack, and then I asked her if she wanted a piggyback ride. And she does tend to like to do that after she's woken up. I think she's not quite ready for all the stimulation of being with her siblings, and so she kind of just likes to ride around on my back. And she doesn't like to be there for an indefinite amount of time, but normally it's enough time for the snack to do its work and bring up her blood sugar and her mood. So I added some avocado oil to the skillet. Now I'm just putting in a single layer some of the chicken breast. And so I'll repeat this process several times. I think it took like 5 batches. I could, if I was really in a rush, just dump all the chicken in the skillet at once and then just toss it as it cooked. But I kind of prefer to get it a little bit brown, and I feel the best way to get it brown is to not crowd the pan. So now my rice is done, and I'm just going to start scooping it into bowls. I feel like I have to do the Henry T. Ford method of the assembly line and just get all the bowls filled with rice, then bring them all over to the skillet, and then add the toppings. So after I've browned all the chicken, there are those kind of brown bits stuck to the bottom of the skillet. I believe it's called fond. I don't know. But it means bottom in French, and I think that just means whatever stuck to the bottom of the skillet. So I added my vegetables and a little bit of water to deglaze the pan, and then next time adding in that sauce. I do have to whisk it up again right before I add it to reincorporate the cornstarch and the syrup. Then I turn up the heat and I really let it get thick and bubbly. And once it's kind of reduced down and thickened up, that's when I add back the browned chicken and any juices that might have accumulated in that pan. I add in as well because that's just extra, delicious flavor. So then I'll toss this all together until the chicken is piping hot, and then I'll serve it right on top of the rice. I was really glad that I got dinner started earlier so that I would have a chance to eat before I went to my book club. However, the woman who hosts the book club is an amazing cook, and she had some version of tiramisu, and I wasn't hungry, but I did have some, and it was delicious, and I kind of wish that I didn't eat dinner because then I would have been hungry for more tiramisu. She also made some sort of delicious pound cake. She spoils us, but this dinner was good, and it was maybe more nutritious than eating only tiramisu. Well, it's time to keep the laundry moving along. I gotta empty the dryer so that I can move stuff from the washer to the dryer. And this is something that maybe has been obvious to everyone their whole entire lives, but it took me a little while to figure out. And it's that the items that I don't want to be wrinkly, if I pull them out and give them a shake, like a little snap and a shake, and then I lay them carefully over the top of the door of the dryer while I'm getting the rest of the laundry out, like all the stuff that doesn't really matter if it gets wrinkly, like socks and rags and towels and athletic wear, then I'll just set the clothes that I've laid flat right on top of the rest of the laundry and then carry it upstairs. And that way, if it takes me a little while to get to folding, the items that I don't want to have gotten wrinkly haven't. Oh gosh, and then here we've got some more stains. I feel like every load of laundry has some stains, especially when you have children who are learning how to eat. It's inevitable. So I'm pre-treating it again with that solution of water mixed with, what was it? The Tide with the OxyClean. And then I'm also getting some of the Kirkland free and clear detergent, and I'm just squeezing a little of that directly on because this onesie had gone through the dryer and it still was stained. So I figured I would try to combine both detergents and between the two of them, I was hoping they would take care of this stain, and I'm happy to report that the stain was gone, and this was an effective solution to this problem. So I'm turning the washing machine on, and because it's the evening, I'm going to put it on a delay because I know that I'm not going to be coming back down to work on laundry anymore. I'm tired, it's the end of the day. So I'll put it on a delay, that way it'll finish up closer to the morning. And now that it's time to go to bed, it's time to turn off the fire. And I've learned that I need to bring a pot holder with me, so I close the flue at the same time that I turn off the chimney. Otherwise, I leave it open indefinitely and I never remember, and it'll be cold and drafty in the room. So I've learned I just have to do it at the same time, and that's the only way I'll remember. It's the next day, and I thought I'd start by making myself a pot of tea. I'm a huge fan of Earl Grey, and I don't do very well with caffeine, so my husband found this company called Happy Mug. He used to roast our own coffee beans, and so he'd get green coffee beans from Happy Mug. He hasn't had time really to roast them recently, but he did discover that they also sell tea, and this is actually a decaffeinated Earl Grey tea, so it ticks all the boxes. And I've tried decaffeinated Earl Grey tea from other companies. I think Upton Tea is another company that we tried, and I've gotten some from the grocery store too, and they just really lack that like fragrant, perfumey quality that I have come to associate with Earl Grey. So if you too are in the market for a decaf Earl Grey, I highly recommend Happy Mug. And then I also feel like Earl Grey is not complete without a liberal dash of whole milk. I was recently experimenting with making pie dough using King Arthur's gluten-free bread flour, which does use wheat, but somehow they've removed the gluten. And so I've been searching for a crust that is flaky and tastes as good as a regular crust, but is gluten-free. And so I made a double recipe of the pie dough. One of the recipes I used less water. This recipe I used a little more water, and I was trying to see if I noticed a difference. They both worked well, but I still haven't quite mastered getting the rolled out pie dough into the pie plate and getting the perfect circular shape also. So sometimes I just trim and piece together, and I feel like it's fine for our family. We still think it's delicious. It still looks pretty enough. It's not professional looking, but it's good for the family. So I'm just kind of patching things together. I have learned that it's really helpful to roll out gluten-free pie dough on saran wrap. So you put down a base layer of saran wrap, and then on top of the pie dough you put another layer of saran wrap, and then you'd use your rolling pin on top of that top layer. And then once you've rolled it out big enough, the shape that you want, you remove that top layer, and then you use the bottom layer of saran wrap to kind of like lift the dough off of the counter, and then you slide your hand underneath, and then you kind of like flip it upside down onto the pie plate. So now that saran wrap that was on the counter is now on top of the pie crust that is still raw, so I guess it's pie dough. And then you just peel that off, and then you can start your repairs if you're like me and didn't do it in exactly the right shape. So now I just am using one finger and kind of pushing it, and then I'm using my two other fingers on my other hand to kind of like pinch that point that I'm pushing. And so it just makes little wavy ridges, which are not necessary at all. But my mom always did it, my grandma always did it, so I feel like it doesn't look quite finished in my view unless this has been completed.
Come back to eat. Coco.
come back to eat?
Yeah.
Well, I think she's getting ready to go to school now.
Nico? Come to school?
No, not to school.
No. I love school.
Have you ever noticed that when people clean their showers for cleaning videos, they weren't actually dirty to begin with? Well, that's not the case here. Look at that moldy caulk. I understand that we probably just need to replace it, but today is not that day, and I just want to get it cleaned up. So I've decided to experiment with a few different cleaning products just for my own benefit and see which one I think is the most effective. So to begin, I'm just grabbing everything out of the shower. It's a good opportunity to decide if it really needs to remain in the shower or whether I can consolidate things. Sometimes I just find empty bottles and I realize this was sitting in here for no good reason. So I'm just going to grab everything out, and then I'm going to get out these various bleach cleaning gels that I wanted to try. So the first one is called Apulito. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but I bought it on Amazon, and it comes in a smaller bottle. You trim off the end of the applicator with scissors so you can kind of decide how thick or thin you want to make the application bead based on the way that you trim the applicator. And what's really nice about this is that you can be precise, and so it's easy to control, and you can feel like you can apply it, directly to the caulk and not get it everywhere else. So I think that this is especially beneficial in that little alcove. You can see it, it's just above me. It has like a marble ledge, and I don't think bleach is amazingly wonderful for marble. So I feel like that's a good place where I can precisely apply the gel bleach. Next, I switched to, what is it, the Lysol? Yes, I switched to a Lysol toilet cleaner, and this was kind of disastrous. It was just much too runny, and I couldn't control the flow of the cleaner, so way too much came out. So I ended up taking a rag and wiping up all the excess because I didn't think it would be good for the tub to just, sit on there. And I am going to let this sit for a couple hours because I feel like that's the best way to get it to lighten the mold stains. So I'm going back in with the Apulito, and I'm addressing the corners of that alcove there. And this rag that I'm using to wipe up that bleach gel that went all crazy, I'm going to just throw into the washing machine with the shower curtain. Or the shower curtain liner, rather. We have kind of like a fabric-y seeming shower curtain liner. That's what I'm getting down right now. And especially down at the bottom where the hem is, where the material is like doubled over, it seems to hold on to water and it can tend to get moldy. So I was just gonna pull that down and throw it in the washing machine with a little detergent and bleach, and then those rags that I used to wipe up the bleach. And that works really pretty well. I feel like I have a new shower curtain by the end of things. Well, it's almost nap time, and I realized that the cover for the mattress for the pack and play that our toddler is going to be napping in this afternoon was not put back together. So it had needed to be laundered, and I had done that, but I just hadn't put it all back together yet. So this is kind of an interesting pack and play. When I was, in the market for a pack and play, I was looking for one that had a breathable mattress. And so you can see this one has little circular perforations on that kind of like rigid board, and then it slides into the cushy part of the mattress, which isn't especially cushy, frankly, but it also has a lot of ventilation. So the idea behind this mattress is that if your baby were to somehow get their face down into the mattress while they were sleeping, or while they were awake, I guess, they should be able to breathe through it. So even if their nose was all the way down, they should be able to receive the oxygen that they need. So that was appealing, and that's why we ultimately went with this particular pack and play. I also liked the color. It's like a little bit of like a maybe oatmeal. It's maybe slightly more gray than oatmeal, but I feel like if I'm gonna have it set up all the time, I would like for it to not be like primary colors or have cartoon characters, or I don't know, I just kind of wanted it to blend in a little bit more with just the rest of our decor in our house. It's not a big deal, but since I had the option, I decided to go for it. And we do keep this pack and play set up in our bedroom because our toddler tends to nap in the afternoons in our bedroom. And so, I don't know, I wanted it to match. Now it's time to make some apple pie. So I'm starting by obviously peeling a bunch of apples, and then I'll slice them up as thin as I can. I have a Cosmic Crisp apples, those are the red ones, and then I also have Granny Smith apples. And if I had it my way, I would have Golden Delicious apples. That's the kind of apple that my grandma and my mom used. I just never see them. I typically shop at Kroger and at Costco, and I don't see Golden Delicious apples. I don't know if they're waning in popularity, because I used to never see, Honeycrisp apples, or Pink Lady apples, but now those are always available. So I don't know, maybe they're going out of style. But the nice thing about Golden Delicious apples is they have this kind of mellow fragrance that they release when they cook in the cream of the pie, and it really gives just like this delicate soft apple flavor throughout the whole custardy filling. So they also get nice and soft. I felt like I encountered a couple crunchy slices. That might have more to do with my not being diligent to get them as thinly chopped as I should have. But who knows? I'm blaming it on the apple variety. So now I'm just adding some ground cinnamon, and then I'm also going to add that same flour that I was talking about earlier. So it's the King Arthur gluten-free bread flour. I think I added maybe like a quarter cup. And then I'm going to add about 3/4 cup of sugar. And then I added a pinch of salt. But if I could go back and do it again, I would have added 2 more pinches of salt, because this is a pie that needs a little bit of salt. It won't taste salty, but it needs enough salt to give it the balance. So don't do what I did in the video. Add a little bit more. So now I'm just going to toss it all together until all the slices are thoroughly coated, and then I'll divide this up between my 2 pie shells. So I did make 2 pie crusts. So I rolled them out and I shaped them as you saw, and then I stuck them both in like a 350 oven for about 15 minutes. So they're par baked, but I do find that helps create a crispier, crunchier crust overall, especially when you're adding something so wet like the apples. So now I'm just going to stick both of these pies in the oven at around 350, and I think I set the timer for 20 minutes, and then I swapped their places and rotated them, and then set the timer for another 20 minutes. Oh, I forgot to mention, after you toss the apples with the flour and the sugar and all that stuff, you pour 1 to 2 cups of heavy cream over all of it. And then once you've poured that heavy cream all over it, then you take a mixture of cinnamon sugar, which we have on hand because sometimes we make cinnamon sugar toast, which is more delicious than you would expect. It's one of those things where it's like greater than the sum of its parts. It's just toast, butter, cinnamon sugar, but it's very yummy. So you give it a nice thorough dusting of cinnamon sugar, and then you stick it in the oven. So the pies are in the oven, and at this point, I very seriously considered just serving those for dinner. My grandma said that her mom would sometimes just make pie for dinner, so I feel like I'm allowed since she did. But instead, I remembered that I had potatoes in the refrigerator that needed to get used up, and I had already seasoned that round roast that you saw me working on earlier. So I figured I should just capitalize on the fact that I've already got a cutting board out and a peeler out and a knife out and just keep moving. So I did have to get myself a kombucha for fortification. This is a blackberry flavor. I don't know if anyone has tried it. It's a little bit tartar than I was expecting. Previously, I had been buying this brand's, it's like a passion fruit flavor, and that's just maybe a little bit sweeter. And so this is my first time trying the blackberry one. I do really like it, but I was a little surprised when I took my first sip. So I'm peeling these small yellow potatoes, and it took about 4,000 years. And then I'm loading up all the peels into this bowl, and then we'll take it out. And by we, I mean, I think my husband will take it out to the compost, which is out in the backyard by the shed, and it's really cold out, so I appreciate that he is willing to do this. So now I'm just gonna chop up the potatoes. Because they're so small, really all I need to do is quarter them, and then I'm gonna stick them in that pot, cover them with water, and then put them on the stove, bring them to a boil for about 20 minutes, being careful that they're not boiling too much because I have definitely overflowed my potato water onto the surface of the burners many times. So keep a little bit of an eye on them. And after those are done cooking for about 20 minutes, then I'll just test them by piercing them with a fork. And if the fork goes in easily, that's how I know that they're done. I find that really I can get a lot done if I just keep going. So I got the potatoes on the burner, and they're coming up to a boil. And I'm back over to the Instant Pot, and I put it on the saute function, and I'm adding a little bit of bacon grease. That bacon grease is from like healthy bacon. I don't know if it really is, but it's from Butcher Box, so it's supposed to be like crate-free pork and nitrate-free and all that stuff. So I don't normally cook with bacon grease unless I feel like it's high-quality bacon. And so now I'm deglazing the bottom of the pan here with just a little bit of water. And then I'm going to add this little, I don't know what you call it, like a little rack kind of thing. And I'm going to put the browned roast back in. It won't be in liquid, so it'll just be sitting above the liquid, and it will pressure cook with the pressure that is generated by the steam of the liquid that is underneath. So I did high pressure for about an hour, and I think if I could go back in time and do it again, I would do it for an hour and 20 minutes instead, because the ends of the roast were like meltingly tender, but the middle was a little bit less so. It was still delicious, but I feel like it could have been a tiny bit more tender. Now my grandma has a recipe for round steak and gravy, and this is kind of the inspiration for this meal. And it's just that roast, but it's sliced into steaks. And I think I prefer that because you have more surface area to season that way. You know, you can get like the top and the bottom of the steak, whereas with the roast, you just get the outside. And I feel like it's just flavored more nicely that way. So here are the pies. They are done. The crust is golden brown, and the cream is like bubbling. I'm moving really slow because I have before in my haste spilled that apple cream mixture all over the oven, and that was disappointing for several reasons. So now I'm back up in the bathroom, and I'm just wiping the bleach gel from the various places where I applied it. So I went back and I wiped up the Lysol, what's it called? The toilet bowl cleaner that I put on the caulk, and I applied instead a Clorox toilet bowl cleaner, and I found that was a lot easier to apply. It didn't flow out so quickly, and it was thicker. So I felt like it clung to the caulk and it didn't spill all over the tub. So if you want to be, I don't know, adventurous and try toilet bowl cleaner on your very moldy caulk like I did, maybe try the Clorox toilet bowl cleaner. We also do use it for the toilets, so it's multi-purpose. I bought the Lysol one at Costco, hoping that it would be just as wonderful as the Clorox one, and I think it cleans just as well, but it's a little bit thinner, so I don't think I'll continue to buy it. So here I've just strained the water off of the potatoes. I added about, I don't know, 6 tablespoons of butter and a good generous couple pinches of salt, and then I would say at least a cup of milk. It's a good glug, glug, glug. I always feel like I can add more milk as I need it. So now I am mashing the potatoes. Have you noticed that the yellow potatoes have a very different consistency when you mash them than like the russet or the Idaho potatoes? They're maybe like creamier, but to me, I like the starchy fluffiness of the white fleshed potatoes like the Idaho or the russet. But this is what I had in my refrigerator, and I'm using it up, and they are perfectly delicious. They're just, if I was at the grocery store choosing for mashed potatoes, I would go with the Idaho or the russet. And another thing is I used to use a hand mixer to blend up the potatoes, but I found that made the potatoes too gluey. So I feel like a masher is definitely the way to go. So here I'm using like a natural cleaner that I got on Amazon. I don't remember the name, but I can find it and I can put it in the notes. And I'm just spraying it on, and then I'm using the sponge to kind of just like spread it out because it was a little bit foamy. So I feel like it didn't disperse to cover the entire surface of the tub, which I don't know how well you're able to see, but it was very, very grimy. I have one child who really enjoys playing with army men in the dirt under our trampoline, and then he comes in and obviously needs a bath, but then I feel like after that the tub is very just obviously in need of cleaning, but it needed it before that, so I'm glad that I'm getting it done. So 1 hour is up on the roast, and I'm getting it out. And then I'm going to combine a little bit of cornstarch with a little bit of water. I'm going to whisk them together with a fork. I believe this is called a slurry. And so I've got the Instant Pot on the saute function, or I'm about to put it on the saute function. And I'm just going to slowly whisk this in to the meat juice. That sounds gross, but I don't know what you call it. What if we say jus, J-U-S? We'll pretend it's French. I don't know if that's the actual correct culinary term for it. But we're going to whisk in the slurry and let that boil and thicken up. And once it's reduced a little bit, then I'll taste it for seasoning and add salt and pepper as necessary. And it did need some salt and pepper. So I trimmed off the fat that was on the edges of the pot roast. And now I'm doing my best to be patient and to slice it very thinly. And this is a surprisingly tender and affordable cut of meat. So I'm going to probably keep this in my butcher box order, at least for the winter. Like in the summer, I like to switch it out for pork shoulders because my husband is really good at smoking and barbecuing those. He'll do like a dry rub 1 or 2 days before, like mustard and brown sugar and all the, typical spices like cumin and chili powder and salt. And then he'll smoke it, and then we'll, shred it up and have it with barbecue sauce, and that is very delicious. But for the winter, I feel like I'm going to keep this particular roast, this round roast, in the rotation at least a couple more times. We get the box that comes, I think, every 6 weeks. It's called like the big box. So we have a family of 7, and none of us are particularly hearty eaters, but it does tend to last us about that 6 weeks. We do supplement a little bit sometimes with sometimes we get the frozen burger patties from Costco. They're so convenient. So anyways, I'm putting in the bowls like a base of mashed potatoes, and then I'm using a fork to cut up our toddler's meat just a little bit and smaller into bite-sized pieces. And then I'm going to add that to her bowl and then ladle a little bit of that gravy kind of stuff over top, which does add a lot of flavor and kind of makes up for the fact that the middle of the roast isn't especially seasoned. So she was protesting. She was saying she wasn't going to eat this. But we got her over in her seat, and it turns out that she did like it. So I felt like it was a victory.
Ice cream on a potato.
So I'm back up in the bathroom, trying to put the shower back together before everyone wants to take their showers tonight. And this is very representative of how things get done at our house. Hardly ever do I start a task and then continue through without interruption until its completion. Very often I'm like bobbing back and forth and starting this and starting that. But I do feel like that's the way to get things done. It's like when you have a moment, you just take the next step in whatever task. So that shower curtain liner is out of the washing machine and I'm hanging it back up and it looks good as new. And now I'm closing it. And that signals to me that the job is done. So we did eat the one pie the same night that I made it. And then this is now the next morning, and it's been in the refrigerator overnight, this second pie. So it became kind of difficult to cut through, but I'm managing to get the job done. It's just requiring a little effort. Pie is always worth the effort, you know? And how do you eat pie? One bite at a time. And I feel like that's how I have to approach all of my chores and tasks, is I just have to do like one little step at a time whenever I have a moment of opportunity. And those moments add up, and eventually you find that, hey, you made a pie and you finally cleaned your disgusting tub. There was no perfection, but there was some progress. Thanks for watching.